I've noticed something over the last few years. I don't spend as much time explaining my choices or my decisions like I used to. And it's not because I don't care about what people think or that I don't care to include certain people in that decision or that I'm being too guarded. It's it's simply because I've already done the work. I've already thought it through. I've already processed through it, and I don't feel like I need to give a narration about it. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today. So, if you're new here, I'm Christy, also known as the Comeback Mentor, and I work with women who are stepping into a new chapter, and they want to do that with clarity, with faith, and a very steady sense of who they are and what they want and what they need. And these conversations are very thoughtful, very, very honest, and practical. So if that's what you're looking for, subscribe and stay with me. So today's conversation is a, it's it comes from experience and not an attitude. Trust me, I can have an attitude, but that is not the direction we're coming from, because when we let people know that we've made a decision, sometimes they come at us with, well, thanks for including me in that process. Thanks for letting me know, and we can tend to throw some attitude that way. But when you have lived enough of life, you really start to recognize the difference between a decision and defense. Many of you aren't unsure about your choices. You're worn out from feeling like you need to justify them. And I have been there. Earlier in life, explaining and going through the process, bouncing things off of people, where it served a purpose. It helped you weigh the options. It helped things go smoothly. It didn't mean you always made the right choice, but you had a process of including others into that decision-making process. And it showed a sense of responsibility because that's how we're raised, right? Um, and it keeps your relationships, because the people you're leaning on is either family or friends or coworkers or your church family, people in your community that you trust. It keeps those relationships steady, right? Because they feel like they're included. But over time, we develop our own discernment, and it gets sharper, it gets more honed in. Life experience teaches you things to watch out for, to steer clear from, what feels more safe. And yes, feelings do count. I mean, gut feelings, I really believe in, because especially if you have the Holy Spirit in you, those gut feelings are coming from the Holy Spirit. But that's another conversation there. But when you've thought something uh, through and through, you know, and you know when you've prayed it through. I, for many years, have had to have at least 48 to 72 hours to pray into something. Like, I am going to know, if I feel at peace after I pray into something. And over the last couple of years, there are certain people out there that say that's an excuse. But that is the development of your discernment. That is a relationship building with your portion of the Trinity or all of the Trinity that you're praying into about those decisions. That's relationship building. And that's what we have done in the past by leaning on those that we trust. So as that relationship builds, your discernment grows. Your decision-making process shortens. And at that point, explanation, it shifts. It shifts from having a need to be helpful for you to be able to ponder. It goes from a hesitation to an automatic. So the past, going through explaining to those that are helping you make decisions, can become habitual. It can be a habit. And when you step into that full discernment mode and you take shorter time and you don't need the assistance of those people that you've leaned on before or who are in your life now that expect to be part of that process, they feel left out, but you have grown. And it starts to pull and drag and weigh you down because now they're making you feel like you've made the wrong decision. Like, okay, now I've hurt somebody because I have grown in my decision-making abilities and my discernment and knowing what I want and keeping this all right here instead of out here. Oh, well, now I've got the extra weight of disappointment on those that felt like they should have been part of my decision-making process. And that is a weight we don't have to carry. It's not our responsibility to include them in the process, especially when we've grown that relationship. And that's an understanding that has to come with those in your circle, is a respect for your growth and your decision-making abilities, and to level up the relationship they have with you in trusting you and how you make those decisions. Because you've already done all the work, all the internal work is done. So learning how to speak to them when they feel offended, when they feel like they've been left out, and it's really setting a boundary and setting I would love for you to support me in the decision I made for me. Or I have already made the decision and this is what works for me right now. I'm comfortable with this. I statements, because they need to know that this is about you. They're invited when you invite them. When you stop explaining and trying to justify why you made your decisions and why you made them without those people, you gain your boundary line, you gain your confidence back, you gain portions of your identity and your clarity and your discernment, and the weight will come off because you're putting the responsibility of their emotional issues of being left out back to them, because that is weight that you don't need and it's not yours to carry. We all have a life to live. We all have decisions to make. And their support would be so greatly appreciated. So as we move through the rest of this month, because we are in a new year, we're in the second month of the new year. Many of you the habit of explaining has formed in your prior seasons where you had to be depended, you had to be dependent, you had to be agreeable, and you had to be clear for everybody else because it made sense then. It may not make sense now. If you're getting your legs, you're ready to walk on your own, or you're in that space where those around you are feeling like they're left out, start building your boundary lines. Start taking your authority back in these areas. And it doesn't mean that you're kicking them to the curb or that you have an attitude. So as we continue to go through this month, we're going to talk about identity. We're going to talk about relationships. We're actually going to talk about the body. We're going to have a lot of good conversation. And this is a place where you can feel safe, you can feel trusted, and I am happy to listen. Let me know. Let me know if you need somebody to bounce things off of, or you need help with your boundary lines so that you can make your decisions without hurting others. And I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, tell me what you've noticed that you're explaining more than necessary, or where you feel like maybe it's time to put the brakes on, stop with the over explaining and the having to justify your decisions. So if these conversations are actually helpful, and you would love more clarity, more conversations around boundaries and how to step into a new season with clarity and confidence and your divine calling and dreams, subscribe and stay with me because there's more coming. I'm really excited. So you don't need to justify every step you take. You get to move forward with steadiness, with confidence, and trust in yourself. I'll see you in the next conversation. Bye.